So the iPhone 14 and 14 Pro does not come with a SIM card tray anymore. Apple has decided to double down on this new iteration called eSIM. So the little tray on the side of your phone to switch your phone number and cell service, yeah, it's gone now. And Apple seemed to have glossed over this during their presentation.
The first time, all US models no longer have the SIM tray, so you don't have to deal with a physical SIM card anymore. eSIM provides a simpler...
What? Okay, that's a huge negative, but I believe this is a pretty big change moving forward for smartphones and devices in general. But you know what is a pretty big change on this channel? Our sponsor today, nobody. The reason why this is a big change moving forward is because when Apple decides to do something, everybody first mocks them, then they make jokes about Apple, and then a couple years later, they do the exact same thing. Samsung, I'm looking at you. And Oppo, you don't exist in my country, but I'm looking at you too. You can't hide from me, international brands. Now, this only affects the US market because non-US iPhones will still come with the SIM card tray, which is smart because not every carrier in different countries support eSIM or electronic SIM. But what does this mean for you and me? Well, let's get the boring stuff out the way and let me explain what does SIM even mean and what does it even do. And if this part seems boring to you, well, just skip to this part of the video, but this is good information to know when your phone carrier tries to pull a fast one over you. Let's start off with the basic one, SIM. So SIM stands for Subscriber Identity Module. So this thing right here is what is most likely in your phone right now, which allows you to connect to 3G, 4G, LTE, or 5G, or some type of network. And this gives you the ability to make calls and send text messages to other devices connected to a cell tower. Now, there are several things stored on the SIM card itself. There's something called IMSI, which stands for International Mobile Subscriber Identity, and this identifies the device and user of what country and mobile network they need to connect to. So since I'm in America, for example, my SIM will detect that, hey, I'm in America and I need to connect to Verizon towers or AT&T towers. Or, hey, now I'm in Canada and I need to connect to the Roger towers. Now, this is a oversimplification, but it's made possible with another term you might have heard of called GSM, which stands for Global System for Mobile Devices. So you guys know as years have gone by, we went from 2G, 3G, 4G, and now 5G. LTE was kind of slid in there. But you really need to know that the G stands for the generation of networks. So right now we're on the 5th generation of mobile networks. Now, I don't want to get into the debate and the history of CDMA and GSM, but most devices nowadays, and I think as a global standard, have all moved to GSM. And I believe any carrier still supporting CDMA in the US will be shut down by the end of the year. Hopefully I haven't lost you guys yet. We have 2 more acronyms to go and then I'm done. So there's something called ICC-ID, which stands for Integrated Circuit ID, and this identifies the SIM card itself. Think of it like a serial number for a product, but in relation to the SIM. So the number you read off to your carrier over the phone when you want to swap devices from the SIM card itself, that is what the ICC-ID is. Now, the last acronym, which I'm sure you've interacted with before, is called the IMEI, which is another number you read off when you want to swap devices, and this stands for International Mobile Equipment Identity. And this number is registered somewhere, and when I mean somewhere, I mean some database or somewhere in the cloud, whether a device is valid or not. So in the event you lost your phone and you don't want it to be activated by someone else, a carrier can mark it invalid and it won't be able to be used on any network. And this is typically what happens when a device gets blacklisted or when you try to move different carriers and your device is carrier locked. This also works in tandem with the SIM card as well. Typically, phones are locked off only if the device hasn't been paid off or it's locked to a plan or contract. So that's the only real reason I've seen devices be locked down or marked invalid. All right, so with all that information now, or if you skipped to this part of the video, What does this have to do with eSIM and Apple removing the SIM card tray? Well, for eSIM, just imagine your SIM card, but it's built into your phone. All you need to do is download the carrier information with your data and you're good to go. And the other benefit is that most devices with eSIM can have multiple carriers or phone numbers associated with them. So for example, I can have 2 phone numbers and 2 data plans. Pretty cool, right? But it's nothing new because before we would just have 2 slots in the SIM card tray for multiple numbers. The other option, which is pretty prevalent now, is to have 1 eSIM and a physical SIM, which I think is the best combo, but eSIM isn't all sunshine and rainbows. First, not all carriers support eSIM. However, at least here in the States, most of the major 3 carriers do. And I think that is why Apple was a bit hesitant on making this standard for all iPhones that they sell outside the US because it's just not as common. The other striking thing is, as a company that is a big push for privacy,
we believe privacy is a fundamental human right, and that your health data is yours and yours alone.
it leaves me a bit perplexed because with the SIM being embedded in the phone itself, you're essentially being tracked by your mobile carrier all the time. And for corrupt governments or power parties that want to harm opposing parties or groups or individuals, it just makes their job that much easier. And your SIM data, like your phone number, your contacts, are stored in the cloud now, and you have to download them. So if you want to keep that stuff local with your SIM card, you can't do that anymore with eSIM. And this also makes it a pain to swap between phones, or worse, if you want to travel abroad and want to connect to that country's mobile network. If they don't have eSIM support, you're kind of just screwed with the whole roaming plan. The luxury of the SIM card tray is that if you went to a different country and you wanted to use their local network, you just decided to pop out the SIM card, go to a SIM store, buy their SIM card, pop it in your phone, and you're good to go. But eSIM does have its advantages. For one, no more plastic, or I should say less plastic, is needed since we don't need that card or tray anymore. So, yay with the whole hoopla about carbon neutral by 2030. You can have multiple profiles with eSIM, up to 5 theoretically. I talked about being tracked all the time, but if someone were to steal your phone, they can't remove the SIM card and hide the phone or try to hijack your SIM card with your phone number and contacts. And with the eSIM, it just makes it a lot harder for a person to steal your information. Although if they were to hack into the cloud, then they got everything that they need. The thing that people probably don't know is that eSIM has been around for a while. As a matter of fact, Apple was the first to introduce it on a smartphone back in 2018 with the iPhone XR. And the first device ever was Samsung with the Samsung Gear S2 in 2016, with the Apple Watch Series 3 a year later in 2017. So why all of a sudden is Apple getting rid of the SIM card tray on their new flagships for the US models, the iPhone 14 and 14 Pro, which you probably bought? The only thing I can think of from Apple's perspective is 2 things, right? The nano SIM, or the SIM card tray, is a thing of the past. And like I said before, my worry is since Apple is leading this change, Samsung will be the first to follow, and then every new flagship moving forward won't have a SIM card tray, and then this will trickle down to markets that aren't fully mature yet globally. It might be a couple years, but if it makes the device more something proof, like more waterproof, or we have a bigger battery, or Apple's agenda of making things thinner, that's great. I just hope that this leads efforts in countries that don't have a great mobile infrastructure and pushes them to build out a proper network for them to support eSIM and better networks as well. My other thing that I'm thinking about for why Apple could potentially do this is another reason to lock you inside their ecosystem. Now that your eSIM and contacts and phone numbers are baked into the iPhone or baked into the eSIM inside the device itself, you probably might be a little bit more resistant if you decide, hey, I want to move over to Android. Now, it is possible that as years go by, the standard of eSIM will make it easier to transfer between iPhone and Android, or BlackBerry if they decide to come back. But that is another thing that I'm thinking about for, locking people inside this ecosystem, because switching from eSIM or switching from device to device is a bit more of a pain now, because before you just pop out your SIM, put it in the new phone, you're good to go. So to wrap things up, this video isn't to scare you from using eSIM over a physical SIM card or vice versa. I just don't want people to be surprised when they go out and buy the new iPhone, at least here in the US, and don't see the SIM card tray and they start panicking. I was genuinely thinking about purchasing the iPhone 14 models overseas, but it seems that Apple glossed over in the fact that they increased prices pretty much everywhere in the world except for the US. So I know people are probably feeling pain on that, so guess I have to buy an iPhone with no SIM card. And I gotta make a video on it. I just gotta move forward with the eSIM. Just kidding, but I've really been trying to avoid eSIM for as long as possible, but I guess I can't do it anymore. And that made me upset with the new iPhone 14 models, but can't believe they decided to remove the SIM card tray before giving us USB-C. What kind of world do we live in? But hopefully you guys found this video informative. I appreciate every single sub, like, and comment. And as always, guys, much love. I really don't think people realize how expensive these phones got overseas. We are lucky in the US to not be complaining about price increases, because, oh my God, Germany.
The first time, all US models no longer have the SIM tray, so you don't have to deal with a physical SIM card anymore. eSIM provides a simpler...
What?